Hey everyone, welcome to another podcast of Both Keys at the Same Time. I guess it's been a while since we did our first podcast. Both of us have been fairly busy, and there was a holiday season, so this is the first time we're able to get together and have a chat again. But you are calling yourself the Dyson now, are you?
Yeah, I'm going through them. That's a bit of an old reference, that one, but
Yeah.
yeah,
So what was that video you sent me?
from my favorite author, favorite novel author. Like
Well,
just
I mean, he's one of my favorites too as well. And I did tell you there are a bunch of restaurants in Canada that chain is called Kokoro.
yeah, that's a big thing now. I was there right at the beginning, right? Literally,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember when did I first read White Ninja. That was probably
Yeah, you can't.
age 14, something like that.
Shiro Ninja.
Shiro Ninja,
That's what you gotta call it.
Tenjin Umuge, one of the
Denjiro.
best,
Yeah.
one of the best villains
Ever.
ever,
But
ever.
let's let's talk about that another time.
Best
You told me
villain
that
ever.
on Baz Rutten, who is a legendary
Baz
MMA.
is amazing. He's
But this
honestly,
was Seagal. But it's just who would win between a fight between Seagal and
I
Baz?
mean,
But
he beat the shit out of Steven
I'd kick
Seagal.
him,
This
I'd
was
knee him, I'd elbow him, I'd take him down. There'd be no contest.
hold him over. You're not gonna beat Baz. Baz is probably one of my best MMA fight. He's probably my favorite MMA fighter. In actual fact,
But I'm sure
just
Seagal something like, "Oh, you really think you beat me? Hmm. What makes you so sure?
you think,
I'm
wait
gonna,
a minute, Seagal.
you could go.
Oh, you're a hero now. You're
Yeah,
fighting
you're a
now.
hero. You're a hero now. You go find your favorite proctologist. You get an ointment. You can put
Don't
it
get
on.
me wrong. I think Steven Seagal is a legit martial artist. I mean, I think he is just like, I think he's pretty amazing, and I kind of think that he's got a good chance of killing you if he actually gets hold of you.
Yeah.
But the thing is getting
But
hold of you because he's pretty old and slow now, and
just that, I
you
mean,
know,
run. Look at the size of him. If you
I
run,
mean,
he
he's
ain't,
big. He's a big dude. I wouldn't mess with him.
ain't catching you. I say that right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of these guys that trash him, you know, wouldn't actually be able to deal with someone like because he's going to
Well,
do some nasty kind of.
I don't know if it's paid for, right? But there's a guy that does a lot of karate videos on YouTube, and then he got a meet with Seagal where he trained with him. Did you see that?
Oh,
Um,
Jesse Enkamp, yeah.
is it Jesse Income that he does traditional karateka stuff? And
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, the blonde guy.
yeah, that's the dude.
Yeah, he's pretty good. The only thing I'd say about Jesse Inkamp is that he's pretty sort of like a lot of his videos, like he does with people. He's not in a bad way, but he's letting them say he's a pretty good fighter. I think Jesse Inkamp.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think there's a design to it. I want to say create controversy, but he's trying to dispel myths or put his spin on things, or saying, um, this is stuff that doesn't really exist, like the
yeah,
Dimmak. That's that.
the Dimmak. Well, it's Dimmak is grossly misunderstood, right? I mean, so obviously other people wouldn't know, but I've got a background in Chinese martial arts for study for
Yeah,
like years and years and years.
yeah,
So I mean, it's kind of this thing like Dimmak is a thing, but I don't think it's a thing in the way that people think. Like,
yeah.
so
It was a
in
technique and blown all out of proportion, right? In terms of the mis.
yeah, and I mean, yeah, pressure points and this and that, they sort of work on static people, but on the other hand, if you're quite strong,
Yeah,
it's pretty hard. So our version of thinking about it was just striking vital points, which would mean, it's not that common. It's like you punch someone on the nose, they can't see. You hit them on the chin, they get knocked out.
hey,
There's
this is
various parts of the throat which can be painful and sort of,
called the quick.
pretty dangerous. But the other thing is that what people misunderstand, I think, with a lot of this, is that people say, "Oh, I'll do this and I'll do that," but you try and doing it actually on someone that's resisting you and might actually be a good fighter. Good luck. It's just not going to work. I mean, I've literally I've kicked people in the groin hard, and they've taken it and hit me back. So, or you don't
But
realize that in real life. It's I don't know what those things are sometimes against someone who's completely untrained. Then
but then
yeah,
in the 70s, Iron Ball Kung Fu style, right, where you can where you can raise your balls up a little bit into your body and you get protected. But I was telling
Yeah.
you about standing, right? I mean, have you trained in the Quicksilver technique? And
Yeah, man. Quicksilver technique is legit.
and he's back. Have you watched the second part of mid-season Cobra Kai?
I actually haven't started season 6 yet.
All right.
I know I'm gonna binge it, so I'm just.
All right. I did a review recently, it's mid-season. I don't want to spoil anything for you then, but
Yeah.
can't see, man can't fight, man can't breathe, man can't fight, man can't stand. All of those are legitimate rules. Now, how you execute them, I guess, is a bit different, but you know.
Yeah. So yeah, the whole Dim Mak thing, I think, is like um,
And what was the strike that they
obviously
do all the time? A jite to one of the
a liver kite,
liver kite, yeah, kite
a
to one.
vicious
He did one.
liver kite.
He used to do one on one of the neck points down here or something. What was it
Yeah,
called?
so there's this area you can sort of strike either here or up in here.
What was it called in
Depends which
the
direction you're going. Basically do a knife hand sort of thing, or
but
some people actually do a thing like this, like a point.
Oh yeah, the finger.
It's pretty hard, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Again, like, in reality, you try doing that to someone who's like quite strong, it's just not going to work. Good luck.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't work because it's
name, right? If I remember, I can't remember the name of the area for the
what?
kite. The area had a specific name, didn't it?
Oh yeah, I can't remember that. And I just remember the vicious liver kites, and then he fought this sumo dude that did something else.
Anyway, let's talk a little bit about trailers. Did you watch the Daredevil Born Again trailer?
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Right up my street.
was Daredevil was probably the main Marvel TV show that I liked the most. I thought the others were okay. Iron Fist was okay. Power Man was okay. I watched Jessica Jones, but Daredevil and Charlie Cox was really good, largely because of the casting. I mean, Charlie Cox was brilliant, and D'Onofrio is brilliant. But
Yeah.
what I do want to say is a lot of people are reminiscing about how bad Affleck was in the role.
Hey, I mean, I always disagree with that. You know what? I actually really like that film, especially the extended cut.
The director's cut of that film
Yeah,
is actually a pretty decent film.
it's quite different, actually.
Yeah, it is.
For me, the only bit that I didn't like in that film really was the whole seesaw thing.
Yeah.
That was a little bit of silliness.
Well,
But
they were ripping off the Hong Kong kung fu genre, right? In terms of a lot of the wire work that he was doing, and that did look a bit ridiculous.
no, I going back to that original, I actually really liked it. So I'm a Daredevil fan. So I've always he's one of my favorite sort of Marvel sort of characters. I really loved that whole kind of especially in the 90s and stuff, all that kind of slightly darker, sort of grittier Daredevil. So I mean, he always was. But I would always have liked Daredevil because of the Bruce Wayne sort of parallels-ish, the conflict and all this kind of stuff. I think Matt Murdock was always a bit more human in that sense.
But they didn't know where to take him in the comics initially. I mean, he was just like a blind superhero lawyer, right? But then Frank Miller got hold of him and
it was just like, yeah, unbelievable. In fact, I think that might be one of the few sets of graphic novels I've actually still got.
Yeah, I love that Fear. It's one of my favourite sets he ever did.
It's brilliant, but then you can remember it sort of went into all of that stuff extra with the hand and all that, all those like kind of bits. It was brilliant in those. I was totally into that.
Always brings ninjas wherever he is. There's going to be ninjas. He did it in bloody RoboCop because he wrote RoboCop 3 and he brought in killer ninjas against RoboCop. So wherever Miller's going to go, you're going to have ninjas. So I'm glad he brought the hand and he brought Stick. And I thought Affleck was good in the role. I wasn't a huge fan of Jennifer Garner. I thought she was okay, but she wasn't brilliant as Elektra.
She was okay
as Bullseye.
It was me.
Bullseye. That performance.
It was camp, but wicked. I loved it. The top. Yeah, like you, I mean, I really liked the film. I thought actually, And I think I think people don't remember. You got to take yourself back to when it came out.
Yeah.
It was like that whole cinematography and that kind of slight darkness and edginess didn't really exist.
No.
So for me, a bit like Blade, it was actually quite an unusual film. They camped it a little bit. That's fine. So it wasn't as cool as Blade, but then I think it's harder to do with a bigger character like that. So
Blade, I'm going to give David Goyer any credit because everything else he did sucked, including the Dark Knight trilogy. But Blade 1 was an amazing film, and that really just brought it back.
Blade was unbelievable.
But going
still good.
But going to Daredevil, that scene at the end when he's on the organs and stuff jumping around, that was a bit silly too. But I thought they got quite a lot of the bits right. And as you said, the extended cut really had a lot more of his kind of strength and passion around what justice was and trying to create his own sense of justice when the system doesn't work. So that was really, I mean, I enjoyed the Affleck version. And I really did think he was Batman. But still, it's not a terrible film. And the director's cut is pretty cool.
No, I in general, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I hear what most people are saying. It's like it's a little bit campy and not great, but it's just one of those films that I enjoy. Yeah. Like switch things off a little bit, and I am a fan of Daredevil, as I said. But switch things off a bit, but I just enjoyed it because it's actually a good film for me, anyway. So,
Michael Clark Duncan was a good Kingpin. I mean,
I think brilliant.
I thought it was really good. Yeah. Has made the role his own, but as Kingpins go, he was a decent enough Kingpin back in that original film to really to make it enjoyable.
Yeah, really good. Look, I prefer Vincent D'Onofrio, but I mean, I think he's closer. He's an interesting Kingpin. Like I think he is brilliant, and I really like him. But he's also just that little bit too refined. He's a little bit too refined sometimes for my taste, but he is still brilliant. I still really like it.
Which one? D'Onofrio or Michael Clark Duncan?
Yeah, D'Onofrio, yeah.
Yeah. But
I think Michael Clark Duncan had a bit more of that
street gangster
nastiness, like that underlying kind of nastiness. So he really was like that. Tyrannosaurus Rex in a suit. Do you know what I mean?
You showed the original Daredevil TV show, and D'Onofrio has that in his performance. There's scenes where Kingpin goes batshit crazy, starts mauling people. And that's one thing I noticed about the trailer. The trailer seems to have a huge amount of like really bone crunching fighting in it.
Yeah, brilliant. Love that. Always love a bit of that.
His leg. Bone sticking out. I mean, it's almost Bloodsport-esque, where you have a break on the knee and you see the bone sticking out. So I think Marvel have taken that show and said, let's amp it up a little bit. Let's make it even more adult than the Netflix version. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it will be good. And I think obviously getting what's his name back.
John
Bernthal back, yeah.
Oh, John Bernthal, Punisher.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another great actor. High intensity. He brings a great amount of depth to that role.
And again, I was a Punisher reader, so I think he's quite a hard character to get right. So I think
Lundgren.
That lumbering.
I didn't see
it was all right. Yeah, no, but I thought John Bernthal was good. I think the version of Punisher in that he does, he's a bit too ordinary in one sense, as in he's a bit too human. But it's still excellent. Because Frank Castle, he's just a psycho. But I don't think you can portray that and actually like him on screen if they do it that way.
Yeah, Bernthal's great.
I just don't think it will work because he's just that much of a mentalist. He's just mad.
Bernthal's created a slightly more honourable, less psycho to him.
Yeah, less psychopathic. Yeah,
he has sometimes in the comics and doesn't at other times. Depends who's writing him. But definitely the the Lundgren version was interesting because that was not a good film. I still enjoyed it, but it was
No,
not.
it was bad. It was
The
worse than Master of the Universe.
Thomas Jane version was pretty decent.
Huh?
That was but I never saw Ray Stevenson. Did you see that one when he was?
Yeah, I did actually.
Yeah, that good.
I don't remember that film. I can't really remember it. It was a pretty sort of generic take on it. I thought it wasn't particularly memorable. I can't really remember it that well. Yeah, where were we? Yeah. So back to the Daredevil trailer.
Yeah,
Excellent. Charlie Clock's brilliant. He's got that real. Do you know what I really like about him? He's able to act the conflict physically as well as through his words.
Yeah,
like you can really see it, and I think that's really, really good. And he's got the character, which is nice.
Well, I mean, he needs to be in a big screen Marvel film. I don't know if he's going to be in Thunderbolts at all, any guest appearance, but it was nice seeing him in Spider-Man. But I think to your point, Charlie Cox has got a really good range, and that tormented, troubled soul that is Daredevil. He nails that pretty well.
It's interesting. I've just started reading. Just picked up a couple of comics recently, just because my son's got Marvel Unlimited, and I'm reading the current Daredevil series. It's really interesting, actually. Nice direction. It's really,
since I read Daredevil.
Have you seen it? It's really going into this kind of like his Catholic faith and like experiences with that and this, that, and the other. And it's really interesting. It's really good, actually.
Well,
and I'm looking forward to it. But I think maybe, hopefully, Disney have turned a bit of a corner with these like Star Wars and thingy IPs because, because of all this like nonsense that's come for the last couple of years. Again, I think people have overreacted a little bit. Like, a lot of it was woke, like nonsense. Hey. I think people have overreacted a bit too much. As in, I watched She-Hulk, for example, but people have been like spazzing out over it. But actually, it's not that bad. It's all right. I found it watchable. I just didn't find it good.
I enjoyed She-Hulk for what it was, a very irreverent, different style that Marvel had never done before, trying to keep in line with some of the comics where you break the fourth wall.
Fourth wall and all that, yeah.
So it was okay. I mean,
it was okay. That's what I mean. It wasn't like this... It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either. Like, I was happy to watch it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and like I was trying to show Arjuna the other day because my son Star Wars Holiday Special, and we got through like 15 minutes before he had to say, "Turn it off, Dad. This is too bad. Can't watch it." Whereas I'm sure he would be okay watching The Acolyte. He may not enjoy it, but he could watch it better. And I've almost finished Agatha All Along. I've got the last episode tonight, and I'll do a review of that. Don't forget, I was pleasantly surprised at that series. It was much better than I thought it was going to be, and enjoyable to watch, and good story, good performances. So let's see what the last episode has in store.
Yeah, but I thought it was okay. Again, pretty good. I'm just trying to think of all the series. Okay, so I liked WandaVision.
Yeah,
I really liked WandaVision. What other series? The Loki series 1 was good. Season 2 was...
Okay, could be. Not brilliant, but okay.
It was okay. Yeah, I thought it was okay. It was like a bit of a goodbye sort of series. That was fine. What other series are there?
Oh, you mean for Marvel?
Yeah, from Marvel. If you go through Marvel ones, what other one?
Hawkeye, that was decent.
Hawkeye was decent, yeah. I thought Hawkeye was good. Quite enjoyable watch. What else? Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel was okay, actually.
The thing I like the most about Miss Marvel is they really tried to get a lot of history in with the partition, which is not something that has ever really been tackled before on TV. So having that kind of back... I mean, they changed her powers and she was okay, but having that backstory of what happened between the separation between India and Pakistan.
And it was quite nice to see an Asian sort of family on TV and all of that. The only issue with it all was like they overdid like the Muslims are normal people angle. It's like, well, yeah, okay, they are normal people. So, what do you know what I mean? They kind of try to force it a bit too much. Yeah, whereas they could They could have just done it, and it's fine. There's nothing. It didn't need to be. It's how can I put it? It's like really spell everything out. I didn't need that because actually all of the actors in that family were really good. I thought.
Yeah.
Like I really liked the brother and the mum and the dad and like whoever played the imams and all this kind of stuff. It was actually just fine anyway. So I think. And that's what I mean. That's the problem with some of these shows, that they try and make too much of a point of it, whereas actually they could have done it. I thought the what's her friend, her best mate, that dude, he could have been used a bit more. I think he was quite good. I thought.
Yeah.
Bruno.
Yeah.
He was pretty good. But and I actually really liked the girl that played Kamala. I thought she was brilliant actually.
Yeah. How about Moon Knight? You see Moon Knight?
Moon Knight, loved Moonlight. Laters Gators.
Yeah. He does the split person. He does it actually. Very few people have a proper English accent, but he's pretty good. Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
I really like Moon Knight.
Yeah,
Falcon and Winter Soldier was longer than it needed to be.
Yeah, but it had Zemo.
Yeah.
Zemo was
pretty
brilliant.
Good. It was okay.
Disappointment. I don't know if you saw that. Secret Invasion. Disappointment.
Secret Invasion was...
Could have been much better.
Could have been better, yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of lacked a bit of...
Well, it lacked urgency. Some of the stakes weren't that great.
It lacked a bit of depth, I thought.
Yeah.
Again, it was like 2 episodes too long.
I never saw Inhumans. Did you ever watch that? I never saw that show. I heard it got battered.
Inhumans? No, I never watched Inhumans, actually. I think I saw 1 episode and just didn't bother. Right. I think.
Yeah.
Not because it was terrible. I don't know. I just didn't end up watching it.
Yeah. I wonder who other than Kingpin, I wonder who the villains will be in the new Daredevil show. I'll be interested to see who they can bring in.
Who they'll pull out, yeah.
Yeah. What about other trailers?
They should bring Bullseye back. Come on.
Well, I would love it if Colin Farrell did his Bullseye again, because that was legendary. Legendary.
That Bullseye. Was legendary. That was amazing. From that first scene in the pub.
Yeah. Yeah.
he was superb.
But also when he was getting annoyed by the fly and just his little mannerisms. Even the flourish with his trench coat, he would flourish it like a cape and just get. It was brilliant. I loved his performance. I mean, I haven't seen Penguin, but it would be amazing if Colin Farrell could be both Penguin and Bullseye across DC.
Yeah, I haven't watched that. That's gotten good reviews, right?
It has, but again, when something's gotten that good reviews, I tend to get nervous and wary.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the same crew that like Dark Knight, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly. So let me see and see.
Pretty man. I was like, yeah, okay.
Have you seen the Superman trailer?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, you know what? I liked it. I hope it's good.
That's basically what I said in my review. I liked it. I'm going to give it a now. Let's see what happens. Because
I actually really liked it. Cryptos was there. I was like, yeah, like something a bit more fun. Awesome.
But Crypto flying and pulling him through the sky, that might look a little bit weird. And actually, in my review, I said that was live action Crypto, but they did Crypto on Titans. I don't know if you remember Crypto.
Yeah, I watched Titan.
Of Crypto there. But it looks like he's got a bigger role in James Gunn's version.
Yeah, Guy Gardner's in it, right, as well.
Loads of people. Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl.
Hawkgirl's in it. It looks. I like what's his name as Lex.
Yeah, Nicholas Hoult. But he's a bit of a skin. Lex needs to be a little bit bulkier for me, but let's see.
But he's a good actor, right? So he could actually do the Lex thing.
Brilliant actor. I mean, he's great in I think almost everything he's done. So I think he can pull it off. He can definitely pull it off.
We'll see. I mean, I'll always. You know what? I just. I hope it's not disappointing. I think doing Superman right is actually really difficult. I think it's actually really difficult to pull off, because I don't know if directors and however they make the film can take the chance for him to be, as what's the word I'm looking for? Optimistic and kind of nice, and as he is. That's the whole point about him, right?
Well,
That's the whole point, right?
they
Because
have.
Batman's Batman,
I haven't
and
seen.
no one's Clark Kent,
Yeah.
because I think again people miss the point about him. It's like, yeah, he's the Boy Scout, blah 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 blah, but it's really his upbringing, and he's chosen to be that. He's chosen to be that. That's the ultimate kind of
So
point about him.
the thing that they need to show with Superman for me is everything you said, but like the reason I think he's always been my favorite character. His first comic book character I ever bought and read on. But Superman is a god walking on eggshells for his entire life, and those choices he makes that you mentioned, right? That is what draws the conflict. He chooses who he's going to save. He can't save everyone. He chooses who he's going to save, when he's going to save them. There are times he has to drown people out. There are times where he has to, hold his punches. There are times where he can't really let loose. There are times where he has to take it when he, or go and fight someone that no one else is going to go up against, but just he will try because he's who he is. Those conflicts are what really, and I'm quoting a few stories here, like All-Star Superman, Superman versus the Elite, What's Wrong with Truth, Justice, American Way. All of these amazing comics, even the origin stories that I loved, that Man of Steel and Birthright and stuff. These have real tensions in them, and no one has, I think, adequately captured that on screen up to this point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm definitely not as well read in Super, but it's the nature of his character which I've always found interesting in that sense. Because actually, also when you look at everything about kind of Kryptonians and stuff, they're like grade A assholes, right?
Yeah.
So intrinsically, he's a conqueror, right? Or predominant. That would be his kind of background. But actually, like I said, people make fun of the fact that he's the Boy Scout, but he's chosen that, which I find actually that's the kind of the quintessence of his character, right? That he's chosen to be soft, and that's like heroic, isn't it? That's actually heroic, because it's that level of. It's not even control. It's like it is choice to do the right thing, right?
To do that,
and to sacrifice.
Yeah, and all of these evil versions and Injustice and Superman losing his rag and everything that everyone seems to love. I mean, they're okay, but he doesn't need to be dark. He doesn't need to be gritty. They did a pretty decent. I haven't seen season 4 yet, but everyone has been raving about it. But Tyler Hoechlin from Superman and Lois, I think, is fast becoming my second favorite version of Superman. They really made him optimistic, but don't mess with him, although he gets his ass handed to him for most of those shows. Yeah, I was saying, when the trailer dropped for Superman Returns, it looked amazing. I was quite blown away by that, and I thought that was going to be a brilliant film. But then, of course, Bryan Singer did his homage to the original Christopher Reeve films and Richard Donner films, and copied it so blatantly. Yeah, copied it so blatantly that it was rubbish. I did not enjoy Superman Returns. I didn't like almost any of the performances. The only person I thought was good in that film was Jimmy. That was it.
Yeah.
He was pretty decent, Jimmy, in it. But, one of the problems with that film is Brandon Routh was really young and not that good an actor when he was cast. And he was only cast because he looks like Christopher. When he met Singer, he bumbled and knocked his coffee over, and that was so Clark Kent-esque that Singer said, "Oh, this is my guy." But what's interesting to me is that, I don't know if you watched all of the Arrowverse shows, but when Brandon Routh, because he played the Atom, Ray Palmer, in it, but when he played in the crossover shows, when he played the older Superman, in terms of the Final Crisis stuff, he was really good. He played a Kingdom Come version of Superman, and he was brilliant in that role. So unfortunately for me, I think Superman Returns came way too early in his career for him to really, knock it out of the park. And also he had Singer, who was basically giving that love letter to Donna. So I don't know Colin Farrell's a good actor, but James Gunn is not known for serious, kind of inspirational, optimistic, hopeful superhero films. He's known for toilet humor and ensemble comedy, right? So let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not. I hope it's good, but I'm not particularly hopeful about it because I just think, yeah, partially because of what you said, but also because actually it's quite hard to do.
Yeah, it is hard to do. The only people who've done it right is Christopher Reeve and Richard Donner in those films, and I think personally, Tyler Hoechlin in the Superman and Lois show. He's brilliant in that. One thing that was interesting to me is I really liked Dean Cain's Clark Kent in...
I loved it. Yeah, I loved Lois and Clark.
Lois and Clark, but his Superman was whack.
Yeah.
Superman was pants. I mean, it was almost Superboy. And he put on, slightly different... he clenched his teeth more when he spoke, and he had slick back hair. But his Clark was brilliant. His Clark is one of my favourite versions of Clark that I've ever seen.
It was of its time, though, wasn't it? Lois and Clark.
90s man. He wasn't going to sit in the shadows and be a sidekick to Lois. He gave, I can give as good as I get. He basically gave it back to her. He did give it back to her. Working on. Oh, come on, kid, come on.
You always want to fly.
Now's your chance.
Brilliant. I'm sorry. Superman 3. One of the most brilliant, kind of scenes ever was that him fighting himself. I loved it. And just the bit right at the end when he just opens his shirt was just unbelievable.
So everyone said, I got a video.
That was amazing.
I got a video of Superman 3 that pretty much says that. Everyone says that Richard Lester, it can't touch Donna. And I think in terms of directorial ability, I agree with that. But Richard Lester gave us that scene in Superman 3 where he stands up and he opens his shirt. And the fanfare. It's brilliant. It's one of my favourite scenes in all 4 films.
As goofy or as, silly as certain bits of that film are, it's one of my favourite, not kind of, but it's one of my favourite films ever. Ever. I remember I had it on VHS, I recorded it off the TV, and I just used to watch it all the time.
And over again. Yeah.
I love that film. Love it. It's, again, you could point out all the flaws, but the comedy, just Gus and Ross, and actually Clark in that when he's in Smallville is brilliant.
Well, he opens the door. Fun. He opens the car door and he whacks Gus in the he whacks Gus in the legs, right? A lot of people will say that comedy wasn't good because, Richard Pryor is a genius comic and known for pretty adult humor, and they didn't use him right. And the only reason he got the role is he was on Johnny Carson and said he wants to be in a Superman film. And he was the biggest box office star at the time, which is why they brought him on. But I still found that was my first introduction to Richard Pryor, and I found him hilarious. All of the characters he plays, just even Gus Gorman himself. Hilarious.
Brilliant. It's just one of those films that I love. It as a kid I loved it, and I love it now.
Loved it, and as an adult I loved it. And it's not just Ross and Pryor and others being funny, but if you look at it, it's got that scene, Superman versus Superman. It's got an evil supercomputer that takes over the world. It's got a really decent businessman prototype Lex Luthor villain in Ross the Boss. And he wasn't like that in the comics for another 3 years. And then you've also got, he
was more of an evil scientist, wasn't he, really?
Yeah, and then you've got a better love interest in Lana than Lois. I thought the chemistry was way better with Lana and Clark than Margot Kidder. So you got loads of cool things in that film to enjoy if you really want to look at it that way.
And of course, the origin of the phrase, both keys at the same time, right?
Both keys
at the same time.
Some of that and green stuff. Hey, pate. I love it. How could it make any pate? That's Buster's dog. It was good. It's good.
It was good, yeah.
It's good. It's good.
Oh, brilliant. Like, you know, it's... Sometimes I think, you know, well, we'll see what this new film's like, but I suppose it's never going to compete with that childhood memory, right? In many ways.
Well, hopefully it creates good childhood memories for future generations. Because I thought that the Zack Snyder films, with Cavill were decent, and Cavill,
they were okay.
Cavill did his best, but that wasn't like an inspiring film to watch. It wasn't, to me, capturing the essence of Superman.
No, there's no magic there. It's like it was a very kind of, I don't know, whatever you could.
But it's Goya,
a superhero in there, right?
It's Goya and Nolan being dark and gritty, and the one thing I liked about those films is they really managed to get the special effects of the fighting pretty well done in terms of Superman's abilities. And I love the scene in Justice League where he actually takes on the whole league by himself, and you kind of see how powerful he is. That's probably the first time someone's done his power levels. But interestingly, James Gunn is going for a Silver Age Superman, so 60s, 70s. And that Superman could do anything. That Superman could go backwards and forwards in time at will, could juggle kind of planets on his little finger, was constantly coming up against crazy alien threats. So I don't know what he's got. I don't know if you saw the background of a lot of the scenes. There's like some giant ball in the background, and there's a Godzilla type creature and things. So
I wonder if they're going to pull Brainiac out or something like that. I don't know.
Well, they haven't done Brainiac properly yet, but I think Gunn is going for the bizarre kind of 60s elements that really we haven't seen, and how that will work with Superman for a modern audience is the thing that he needs to balance. That's the bit.
So I think this is always going to be the problem in fandom, is that the thing is, fandom is so big now.
Yeah.
That there's lots of expectations for a lot of these characters to be how we think, right? But actually, you've got to remember that, you know, all these executives and us who are like in their 40s and actually old, right? Playing out their potential visions of things and trying to marry it with the truth is an audience that don't really know about a lot of this stuff, right? So, and then the movie going public that, you know, that aren't comic book, whatever, nerd culture, whatever you want to call it, it is quite difficult. And I think we forget that because of just the sheer like volume of stuff that's out there. It's like, we go back to being a kid. It's like, well, what did you have? You had like comic book stuff. It rarely came on TV. Then you had Knight Rider and a couple of TV shows, and then Star Wars, which came out once every 3 years. And so they took up a lot of mind share. So I think it's sort of unfair to think of it to make them come back in that same way. And in another way, sometimes I think to myself, like, you know, as I've said, that we've had this conversation, I love Skeleton Crew. I love it. Right?
Yeah, I'm only on episode 2, and so far I hate it. So it'll be an interesting chat after I've got to episode 4.
I love it because it's something different and it's for kids. And it's not trying to be anything else other than like a bit of Goonies type scenario. So
yeah, I haven't got to episode 4, but that first episode was so E.T. Goonies-esque to the point where they're taking tests and they have, you know, detention and they have...
It is what it is. That's exactly what it is.
It's too Earth-related for me. It doesn't feel like Star Wars, but maybe by the time they're, you know, with the pirates and stuff, then things will change.
But I like the fact that it's different. Like, they've just moved away completely from stuff, and they've just made its own little story. And like I said a can't remember if we discussed this last time or not, but it's like, for me, like, as George Lucas, he made these things for children.
Yeah, yeah,
And that is what gives it its magic. That's what gives it its fantasy, its believer. You suspend your belief, and like, you can believe in aliens and pirates, and yeah, it's not going to be explainable in, CBG terms, like, fine. But I think that's, for me, I kind of think that's a good thing. I think it needs to be that. I think they need completely different characters and.
Well, when they get to space, that's fair enough. I think for me, the suspension of disbelief was really hard in that first episode because everything was essentially like I was watching, an 80s Goonies movie set in a small town on Earth with the bikes and the dad and the house and the exams and the school bus and the jocks and the geeks and all of this stuff. It was just it hit too close to home.
Yeah, I think one nice thing is I think they need to go back to single story things rather than thinking in terms of these wide sprawling things, like just single stories that might hit or might not. Do you know what I mean? As in, rather than trying to plan it. Because I thought that, what did I watch recently? Not recently, it was some time ago with my son. I watched Bumblebee.
Yeah, that
was the most enjoyable Transformers film I've seen, I think. Because actually it was its own little thing.
Yeah.
Right, it didn't try and do anything else. It just did that little thing,
and it had the 80s nods, and it had enough of the kind of
and that's right up my street. Right, that's what I love. I love all of that.
But like, I just go back to Superman. Right, I don't mind if they do something different, and I don't mind if they try and get a new audience that doesn't really know the lore or the comic books, whatever. But they have to get the character right. They have to get the character right. And the rest, I think, is up to them. I don't think we've really seen that yet on the big screen. I mean, that Jonathan Kent, I love Kevin Costner, but that JK was rubbish for me. Rubbish. Yeah. And he came from a place of fear. They tried to say, if he's that fearful, what would happen? And they did keep one of the lines, I think, I don't know if it's American Alien or something, where he just says, "Can't I just be your son?" He says, "You are my son." But there's a comic where Superman goes off into space to rescue a little girl who's been kidnapped by aliens, and she's just hoping against hope that he'll find her. And he goes through waves of people and places and challenges just to get to her, to save her, because he promised he knows he's going to. That type of character. That type of character is what they have to get right in the film. And I don't know.
Do you know what it is? I just feel like culture today is just so, I don't know, whatever the word is. It's trying to be too realistic. Like, they'll say realistic, but pessimistic is the right word. It's like, what's the word? Like, I'm trying to think of a good word. Yeah, hyper realistic, I guess. Like, just, that lack of kind of, where's the magic in it? Or where's the, just the fun of it, like,
There isn't a lot of magic or fun these days. I mean, I think that's a reflection of our age too, but
just
you just don't see it.
Things like that. Just an aside, I was just thinking about this the other day. I was thinking, because I think probably for us too, we have a lot of these little gripes with a lot of these characters, and I was just thinking the other day, because can you remember, like, a couple of months ago I sent you a lot of those fan fiction things, Star Wars, and some of them are actually really, really good, right? So brilliant, and like the choreography, the lightsaber fights, even the effect, it's just so much better than what's actually produced by Disney, right? Or mainstream, right? So fans can actually produce these things. So I wonder, just as time goes by, and things like these AI kind of video makers and stuff, I think a lot of people are going to start producing stuff in that way that's actually going to be really good. Of course there'll be 1,000 versions of it, but like, I just had this thought of, like, imagine if you could just tell an AI to make a film of Batman Year One exactly, right? How awesome would that be, right?
Right, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? To actually just create that into anime or live action. But I think a lot of that will kind of assuage a lot of this kind of problems that we might have with those things, or create it in the style of, or maybe just create new stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think going back
That's
to
quite
one of
interesting.
the like that I want to touch upon is you said we're at an age where we knew a lot of the lore and stuff, and the people in charge of the films have that sort of similar age. But actually, a lot of the folks in charge of the DC films had no clue about the characters. They
Yeah,
didn't
it's
know.
weird, right? It's so weird because
So
you'd
the one
think,
thing, that driving force that made Marvel good was Kevin Feige is a diehard fan. But you look at Zack Snyder, I mean, he loves Batman. He thinks Batman is cool, and he thinks Superman sucks. Walter Harada, who was the head of the studio, knew nothing about really any of the characters and kept saying 90 minutes, 90 minutes, 90 minutes. Um, you know, even when they got Joss Whedon to reshoot Justice League, yeah, he's a big comic book fan, but he's more of a Marvel guy than a DC guy. So I don't think they really had anyone doing these films that were like very passionate fans of the comics. I mean, you look at what Sam Raimi did as a Spider-Man fan, even though he was a horror director with Tobey, with Tobey in those first films, amazing. So you really
great
need,
film.
yeah,
Yeah, great films.
a great director who is a huge fan of the source material enough that they can treat it with a kind of reverence and the sort of correct interpretations that it deserves. And we haven't had that in DC yet. We just haven't had, any DC film that's like that. I think the closest for me was, other than Donner, was Burton with his version of Batman. That was pretty close to what Bob Kane was going for.
You know
Definitely.
what I think though, because that's just my favorite, right? 89 and Returns.
Yeah.
I don't actually. I feel like he got that noir sort of feeling, that real comic book feel of it. But
No,
actually, Bruce, a lot of like, maybe it's in my imagination, but Michael Keaton got the kind of, it was sort of unsaid how he kind of portrayed a lot
yeah.
of Bruce Wayne's characteristics. It was unsaid. It wasn't obvious,
It wasn't
right?
in the dog. It was in the performance, in the
Yeah,
eyes.
so it was interesting, but he also wasn't as hard. So I wouldn't say it was an overly accurate.
Well, he wasn't 6'3". He wasn't, built like a.
I don't even mean physically. I mean just his actual like hardcore mentality didn't obviously come out, and in the same way as Jack Nicholson didn't do the absolute accurate, but what it was, they interpreted it so well.
Yeah, the
They
essence of.
got they got the actual feeling of both of them through, and
Yeah,
then Tim Burton's was that it was his vision of that, which was a bit emo and gothic and like kind of all of that, which was really really nice, and I really liked it. But I think trying to tease all of that out. The other thing is that when we think about it, right, the amount of source material is massive, right? So why do we like, over iterations and iterations and iterations, you see how strong-willed and like kind of just dead, kind of unbreakable Bruce Wayne is
yeah,
over the story of his thing. He just keeps doing the thing. So I think we forget that. So trying to get that into a film is quite hard, and I actually think he's quite, in many ways, is a very unpalatable character, right? Like
what,
it's like
the
it's not cool. Like when you start to go underneath, it's not, he's not dislikable, because like, so right, for everyone who doesn't know, like I'm more of a Marvel sort of comics guy, but my favorite character was always Bruce Wayne. So that was the only DC comic that I really read. So what was my point? My point is, trying to get that into film space is quite hard, but also I think culturally it's difficult, I think, because he's quite a difficult character
yeah,
to kind of bring to life in that sense and not dislike him.
yeah. I mean, his strength of will, strength of purpose, his way that he doubts everyone. He has
Yeah.
plans to defeat everyone. He puts people in danger to
Well, he
some
can
degree.
whoop everyone's ass, right? Just because of his mentality.
Yeah.
It's like,
With the opposite
and that's
of
the whole point. That's the whole value of the one rule.
yeah.
That is the pivotal rule. He does not intentionally kill people. Why? Because he would just be the ultimate villain then.
Yeah, and then Christian Bale was pretty much the opposite of that single-mindedness. The
He
opposite of
was
that.
just a little bitch. I mean, I'm sorry. I love Christian Bale. Remember, like, I'll always remember this. The first time we watched Equilibrium together, which, if you guys have never watched it, watch that film. You will see the genesis of a lot of alternative fight choreography right there in that film. It was brilliant. It's a brilliant film, which is also based on like an old.
It's
I
based on
can't remember
comic.
if it was a comic
Dark Horse.
series or if it was a graphic. Dark Horse Comics, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Dark Horse comic
Yeah,
series.
something like that. Anyway, but like the first time we watched it, we both watched it and said, you know what, Christian Bale would be the ideal Bruce Wayne. Like from that film, just he had, and I just thought it was a wasted opportunity because you know, and that's always, you know, ultimate criticism of the Nolan films is that, you know, he was just weak in that. He was just weak-willed and, you know, always trying to justify himself and needing Alfred to like tell him what to do, and that's just not who he was, you know.
All times. He couldn't even do anything that Batman should do. He was useless.
What do we do, Mr. Wayne? What do we do? What do we do when we fall, Mr. Wayne? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I won't tell you, but I told you so, because if I don't tell you, you're not going to listen. We won't be able to. You got to order them in bulk, Mr. Wayne. He just wants to watch the world burn. I will tell you how to defeat the Joker. You don't have to figure that out yourself. I've come across men like this before. I know them from the jungle.
Very good.
Yeah. Yeah. So Batman started to get.
It's a nonsense. It's a nonsense, but I get why it was successful. And again, the other controversial view is like Heath Ledger was a good Psycho, but for me, he wasn't a good Joker. Like for me,
yeah.
Like because there's just zero. And I know people would argue with that, and I appreciate that point of view. It's just a different point of view. But for me, he wasn't much fun either. And that's why, for me, Jack Nicholson was actually much more sinister to me because he was having fun.
Jack Nicholson was macabre. Heath Ledger
was scary, you know?
Damaged, but that was pretty much it. You know, he hadn't crossed that line of carving, you know, faces up and joy buzzering people to death funny. Whereas, you know, Jack Nicholson did find that funny. But just going back to James Gunn, I don't think James Gunn is even though he's a comic book guy, I don't think he's a huge Superman fan.
Is he? I don't know. I actually don't know anything about him.
You know, he was one of those people that collaborated a lot with Whedon and others before. Did he? Yeah, I think he did. But yeah, he had comic book interests, I think. But I don't think he was ever a big Superman fan. So let's see how you really need somebody with a love for their character to do the character. And
it's hard though, right? I mean, where do you find these guys that are actually good directors and then able to be creative and then you know, all the rest of it. I think it's quite difficult to do that. But we'll see. I mean, I just think there's something about the DC characters that just never comes across properly on screen, I feel. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, it did for me with Christopher Reeve. It did for me with Michael Keaton.
Yeah, true. It's those two, yeah.
Well, even
that's true. Sorry, no, I was wrong there. You're right. Those two I love, but it seems like whenever they try and they just get so much of it wrong. Do you know what I mean? Where
a lot
of the Marvel characters came across. I don't know if that's something to do with how DC and Marvel are as producers, like their nature. I don't know, because I was never really drawn towards a lot of the DC stuff. Like I said, apart from Batman, that was it. I was 100% always reading Marvel comics because I don't know, for no particular reason. Not that I disliked the DC stuff, but I just preferred that. I wonder if there's something more popular about it. I don't know, something like
DC
it.
characters were always supposed to be larger than life, Greek god types who didn't have a huge amount of personal problems, and they weren't really human caricatures. They were aspirational characters, right? Marvel were very much the opposite. They were very human. They were very flawed. They were bickering all the time. They were basically everyday you and me people, but with superpowers. Whereas DC tried to put their pantheon up on the pedestal for people to aspire to be. And that was a big difference. So, Marvel was realistic and gritty and cool, and DC was, a bit more.
Yeah, well, it's that whole thing. It's sort of a time-based thing as well. A lot of those 30s, 40s characters were always like billionaires and whatever.
Well, if you look at the original, though, the original Superman killed people, the original Batman killed people. If you look at those 30s comics, 40s comics. So they did change over time. But I like The Flash. I did like the 90s Flash with John Wesley Shipp as a Flash. I thought that was a decent show. I quite like the way they did The Flash in that.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. And I did like the Arrowverse. I thought the Arrowverse was decent.
I think I watched the first 3 seasons of Arrow, and then it kind of faded out. I never really watched The Flash.
I thought The Flash was great. Arrow was good. I watched Legends of Tomorrow, which started off serious and just became this absolute farcical show that had a cult following that was quite enjoyable to watch. Supergirl I never watched because any show where they're going to chump the main man in favour of his cousin wasn't something I really wanted to watch. But all the crossovers were good. I enjoyed all of those.
I haven't watched the latest Flash film, actually. I need to watch that. Still haven't watched it.
You have to watch that. If you watch that, you will see the biggest mistake they made in restricting Michael Keaton from being in all of these new films. The biggest mistake they made. So,
well, he is Batman.
Yeah. Well, so the problem with the Flash film for me is I don't think Ezra Miller is a great Flash. I think he's a great actor, but he's not a great Flash. And he doesn't portray Barry that well. And his running style is the strangest Australian breakdance routine. Like, exactly, what is he doing? What is he doing?
Like a weird dad.
So bad.
Is this
But,
is it?
like his other arm, his leg motion, it's all bad. But you got to. He's a great actor, though. I mean, he emotes really well, but I just didn't think he had the character well. But Michael Keaton, I mean, you just got to watch it for Keaton. And I'd love to see an extended cut.
That's what I'm going to be there
for. Which supposedly was decent, which they shelved. I'm sure that'll come out someday.
Sorry, say that again?
I really wanted to watch Batgirl, which they shelved. Keaton was in that. And it's supposed to be a decent film. Nothing brilliant, but they shelved it.
They filmed one?
Yeah, it was out. The film finished it a year or so ago, and then they didn't ever release it. So Michael Keaton was going to be the Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury of the new DC Universe reboot before James Gunn took it. And he was going to be in a lot of the films as the older mentor character to the younger hero.
Okay.
But yeah, they went a different direction in the end. There was a scene at the end of The Flash that they completely reshot. So when you watch The Flash, I'll talk to you about that scene because stupid people doing stupid things.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else is coming.
Well, Thunderbolts is coming out soon. And then the new Captain America film, Brave New World.
I mean,
Harrison Ford as rage-based Red Hulk. Oh, he likes to shout. So let's see what happens. Stop the plane, Chuck! Stop the
plane! I hate snakes, Chuck! I hate them! Oh, that's my pet snake, Reggie. If only you spoke Covitos. Dr. Jones. Like we said before, Belloc should definitely have his own series. That 100%. Would be amazing.
The two people, right? Belloc should have his own show, and Katanga should have his own show.
Katanga should have his own show. with frequent cameos from Salah. That's
The one love the sea and the ruler. Bad date. An Englishman is a soul as free as a mountain bird.
Great actor.
Katanga should have his own show too.
Katanga's brilliant. Listen, Katanga would have his own. That would be a wicked show.
Where's the girl? I killed her.
Oh,
I love the
brilliant.
smells her hair. Like she's.
Do you know what I find still amazing to this day, right? Is that with all of this kind of whatever, like kind of culture that's grown up around kind of these films and all of that, when you really think about it, like how much kind of a law, for want of a better word, can be extracted out of just like a 2-hour film, right?
Well,
it's amazing, isn't it? And I know there's stuff that happened around it, but what I'm saying is, just from such a short amount of like kind of work, like we pull out so many things. They were so impactful. The characters, and how the story was written, and everything else. It's amazing.
We used to, but films today don't have that. They have to spell everything out.
No, they don't. But that's what I mean. I mean, what an art form to be able to compress that much sort of information to something so small. Whereas now, because everything's explained, there's no space to create in one's own mind.
I did that video recently on George Lucas and Star Wars and the original script, where he has so many throwaway lines about Clone Wars and no one will stop us this time, and your father did this and don't want you to go on some damn fool. I did this crusade. There's so much stuff that Lucas threw in as a backstory, which is brilliant. But I mean, just going back to Superman, right? There's so many characters in it. Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific is in it. You've got Lex Luthor. You've got Metamorpho. You got all these people. How much screen time is Superman going to get, and how much stuff are they going to throw in there? That's my worry. That is my worry.
Well, obviously he's doing it as a setup for whatever Justice League.
Why not? Why not Kyle Rayner or Hal or any of the others like Jon Stewart? I mean, we really needed Jon Stewart on screen. I think he'd be a brilliant character. But DC always did better in animation, though. We were talking about films.
DC I mean, I generally love the Batman sort of.
Not just Batman. I mean, the
Superman ones were really good. Yeah. All of them actually pretty good. Actually, you're right.
League Unlimited. The films, Red Hood, the old films as well. They were really good animated films. So they always did
You're
better.
Right, actually. No, their animated division is actually really, really good.
Yeah. Well, look, I think it's getting late here in Hong Kong. I'm going to have to call it a night. Should we sign off? I hope you guys have enjoyed this second episode of Both Keys at the Same Time. We're going to try and do it more regularly if we can, if our schedules permit. But at least, once a week, once a month, whenever you're free, basically. Whenever new stuff comes out, we should just call each other up, have a chat. Because we could talk about so many things for so long and make each other laugh. And our wives just look at us like, who are these nutcases? Yeah. What are they talking about? Yeah.
You, something wrong with you.
Something wrong with you. You, something wrong with you, boy. Let's do another one soon. Thanks to everyone for listening. And I put the podcast out on a bunch of platforms, so check it out and let us know what you think.